the cancer is still spreading. I'm afraid there's nothing else we can do. There is one person who might be able to help.
Our program is a two-pronged treatment outside Mexico City. The results have been stunning.
According to these scans, the tumor was never removed.
Hello, everyone. It's time to play a game.
In a dark and twisted world, a relentless game of survival is unleashed, where lives hang in the balance. In this chilling installment, the boundaries of fear are pushed to their limits as unsuspecting people must confront their darkest secrets and make impossible choices to escape the sinister clutches of a sadistic mastermind. As the movie begins, John Kramer, played by Tobin Bell, also known as Jigsaw, is receiving cancer treatment. He goes to a support group and receives a directive from his physician to stop working because he only has about a year to live. John sees a custodian, played by Isam Biamian Lee, rifling through an elderly patient's stuff. John then envisions the custodian trapped, with two vacuums hooked to his eyes and another gadget linked to his right hand's fingers. Every move the custodian makes breaks a finger from his hand as he tries to stop the trap from sucking out his eyeballs. His eyes seem to go dry and he seems to give up. In reality, the custodian leaves the patient's stuff alone since he notices John observing him. John later finds a man named Henry Kessler, played by Michael Beach, a member of his support group. Henry claimed to have had stage 4 pancreatic cancer before, but he claims to have recovered from his illness after undergoing an experimental technique, and he displays a surgical scar to John. John learns from Henry about the procedure's initiator, Dr. Finn Peterson, played by Donna Gordon. Later on, John makes contact with Cecilia, played by Sinove McAdee Lund, Peterson's daughter, who directs him to her clinic that is opening in Mexico. John travels to Mexico and meets a cab driver named Diego, played by Joshua Okamoto. A van stops the cab, and two armed men step out and force John out. He tells them who he is, and they bring him to the clinic, which appears to be in a large mansion. He meets a young woman named Gabriella, played by Renata Vaca, who claims to have been cured by Cecilia's treatment. John meets Cecilia, who guides him through the process of the operation. She introduces John to her assistants, Mateo, played by Octavio Hinojosa, and Valentina, played by Paulette Hernandez. The night before the operation, John gets up in the middle of the night and sees a neighbor boy, Carlos, played by Jorge Briceño, trying to fix his bike. John helps him out and is friendly toward the boy. John later undergoes the procedure, which Cecilia says will have him slipping in and out of consciousness. The surgery is apparently a success, and John tells Cecilia he will give her the rest of her payment later. John visits a liquor store before departing to purchase a bottle of tequila for Gabriella as a thank you gift. When he gets back to the clinic, it is deserted. John discovers evidence that the group staged the surgery, stole his money, and never even performed the actual surgery as he descends to the operating room. He then destroys the bottle angrily and starts planning for revenge. John finds Diego, who was posing as a doctor doing the surgery. He places him in a trap, forcing him to remove two pipe bombs that are implanted in his arms. Diego pulls his flesh off his arms and hesitantly starts to cut, but he manages to remove the bombs before they explode, and he survives. After congratulating him, John forces Diego to give him the rest of the information that he requires. Then he contacts his resource. Outside of their scam, Valentina works as a prostitute. After she tries to con a man into giving her money, he almost rapes her. However, Amanda Young, played by Shawnee Smith, shows up to beat the man and take Valentina hostage. Next, it is revealed that Mateo is Gabriella's drug dealer and that she is a drug addict. They are knocked unconscious and taken hostage. Ultimately, Cecilia is inside her house when she looks via her security cameras to see an intruder on the roof. Despite her best efforts to flee, Cecilia is also taken. The four scammers awaken in a chamber, shackled. They are confronted by John and Amanda for their fraudulent scheme, which involves defrauding numerous terminally ill individuals of their whole possessions. He can tell Cecilia is still lying even though she explains that John's case was different. Then he starts his game. A box containing a Geely saw is adjacent to Valentina, who is trapped in a trap with a wire saw positioned in front of her neck. She is instructed to chop off her right leg and take out enough bone marrow in a cup to set herself free. Valentina is given 3 minutes, and in spite of the pain, she starts to cut into her leg and remove her marrow. However, the cup doesn't fill up in time, and she is beheaded. 3 people are left when they hear a phone ringing on a cart in the center of the space. Using Valentina's intestines as a rope, Cecilia drags the wagon in their direction. Cecilia tries to call for assistance, but Amanda strikes her and grabs the phone. Outside, another patient named Parker Sears, played by Stephen Brand that John had met earlier after another fake operation, comes with a gun demanding Cecilia give him back his money. Amanda knocks him out and takes his gun. John explains that he can help Parker get his money back as long as he plays by their rules. Amanda feels sorry for Gabriella because she too was in recovery from drug addiction, even though John wants her to be the next. In the end, Mateo goes next. His trap is to make him remove brain tissue from his head and place it in an enzyme jar. A key will emerge to release him after the substance has completely dissolved. Mateo cuts his head open and tries to work through the pain. He too misses the deadline for finishing the work, and a mask closes over his head, killing him from burns. Gabriella's trap begins next. She is hung up from the ceiling by one arm and one leg. She is informed that unless she breaks her limbs with a sledgehammer to release herself, a radiation machine will burn her alive. Reluctantly, Gabriella breaks the bones of her foot and hand to release herself, but her face is burned. Before going on to Cecilia, John and Amanda release Parker. However, they learn too late that Parker is working with Cecilia and is her lover. To get him to save her, she gave him a call. John and Amanda are forced to chain themselves up by Parker, who is holding them at gunpoint. Cecilia steps on Gabriella's neck and fractures it when John indicates that Gabriella needs to be sent to the hospital, claiming that she doesn't want any loose ends. She also informs John that she was aware that he was Jigsaw and finds it funny that she is being targeted by a serial killer. Outside, Carlos is heard kicking a soccer ball. Cecilia brings him in and forces the boy to be chained up on a seesaw trap with John, but John tells him in Spanish to not pull the lever. Cecilia and Parker activate the trap, which waterboards John and Carlos with blood. John pulls his lever so that the blood will only start to drown him. Meanwhile, Cecilia and Parker go back to the office to get their money. However, when Cecilia pulls on a bag where the money supposedly is, she activates a timer set for 10 minutes, and then Hello Zep begins to play as John and Carlos's trap is deactivated. Flashbacks show that John knew all along that Parker was in on the con, so he and Amanda prepared for him to show up and do what he did. The bag contains documents showing withdrawals from Cecilia's accounts, just as poison gas starts to fill the room while Cecilia and Parker are locked in. They both fight for an opening to breathe while the gas also burns their skin. Cecilia stabs Parker to death to save herself, just as John and Amanda warned him that she would. Cecilia sticks her head out through a small hole and survives as the countdown runs out, but she can only call out to John in futility while she remains locked in the room with no way to call for help. John and Amanda guide Carlos outside as it is now morning. John then gives Carlos all the money recovered from Cecilia's scam. Midway through the credits, John has located Henry with the assistance of Detective Mark Hoffman, played by Costas Mandler. Since Henry no longer had his fictitious surgical scar, John surmised that he was involved in the deception. John says to Henry, "I want to play a game," and then sets off a trap that would sever Henry's stomach. Henry is reduced to a terrified whale. As we conclude this spine-tingling journey, we hope you've been captivated by the mind-bending challenges and shocking twists of this latest installment. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more hair-raising content, and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all things sinister and suspenseful in the world of cinema. Thanks for joining.